Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Ask the Experts podcast. In this episode, we bring entrepreneurs who truly have scaled their life and business, and we want to make sure that you are also getting the most and you are also elevating your life and business. My guest today has truly exemplified as to what it takes to shift gears. Marcus wanted to become a lawyer and he quickly pivoted to becoming a real estate appraiser. So Marcus is a visionary. He has over 20 years of experience in the speaking industry. Marcus comes from a little town called Little Rock in Arkansas. Marcus made history as the first youngest American to launch his own real estate appraisal firm. He worked with the largest institution in America, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. For those of you who may not be familiar as to who are Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, well, they are the largest institution to lend you money. So Marcus worked with Fannie Mae. So he worked for the Federal National Mortgage Association. And he also ran his own business during the 2008 housing recession. Marcus, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome, Marcus. Well, I'm so excited too, and I'm sure the viewers also want to know. Can you share your backstory? As I just made the introduction, you wanted to become a lawyer, am I right?
Yeah, so
Can you share
I
your backstory? Yes.
absolutely. So I initially um, had in my mind, probably around junior high, high school, that I wanted to kind of get into law. And so, my first goal that I set for myself was to go to college. And so I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood in Little Rock, Arkansas. Actually, the neighborhood where I grew up was filmed on a documentary uh, on an HBO cable channel called
Wow.
Banging in Little Rock. And so a lot of people know Arkansas from Bill Clinton. Of course, he was the US president, but also this documentary that was filmed in Little Rock, Arkansas. And so it highlighted some of the worst things that, you could be around, but I'm so very thankful and grateful to my family and church group. They kind of kept me on a right path. And sports was another thing that kind of, helped me along my way. But I thought I wanted to get into law to be a criminal attorney. And so,
Wow.
and so, me going to college, graduating, accomplishing my first goal kind of got me in my mind. I was like, okay, I'm ready for the next chapter. Let me start studying for the LSAT that you need to take to get into law school. And wow, what a bomb can hit you at any time. Because once I moved back to my hometown to go to the law school there, I took a summer job working for a real estate appraiser, and that bomb exploded. And I literally felt like I found what I was here to do.
We all have that calling, right? We have that calling, and you got to go, you have to go with your gut instinct as to what, truly feels right for you. And that was right for you. You wanted to, you got into becoming an appraiser. Marcus, can you share with us what is your driving force? Have you reflected upon or analyzed as to what is your driving force and what really keeps you going today? You want to become a lawyer, but fast forward, you became a real estate appraiser.
Yeah, so I think the whole driving force around even wanting to get into law was to help people, and so um, I gravitated toward the appraisal field because I literally found that to be something to become so passionate about it at a
Mhm.
very, very young age. But at the time, there was no people young like me in that particular field. So I think a driving force for me then was to have the mindset, wow, I've become so passionate about a certain part of real estate, but there's no other business owners that are my that were my around my age. And I thought, wow, I could be the youngest in the state to start a appraisal company. And so that just that whole mindset was just kind of, drawn to me. And so that kind of pushed me to kind of keep going. And so I think today, as a speaker around real estate and talking to the youth and adults, the driving force is still the same. It's helping the public. It's impacting people's families and lives with information that they would rather not get if it wasn't for me. I think as we live our life, I think we have to be intentional about things. And so for me, um, I think driving force for me today is to, going places and sharing some really, really great information that people can utilize.
How old were you at that time?
So yeah, I was 24 years old when I got started training to become an appraiser. In America, 20 years later, the average age is still 50 years old, 50 to 55.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah,
So you were 24. That's
yeah, and
incredible.
yeah, and so you know, I look at it today because the numbers haven't changed for people that do that type of work.
Mhm.
It's a better way to inspire even more people, buy a book and do public speaking and just really, really highlighting a part of real estate that you really don't get a lot of information on. In real estate in America, when someone gets a mortgage loan, you're typically going to have be required to get an appraisal. And so, and most people go through that industry not really knowing even what they're paying for. They don't know how to read the appraisal. They don't know nothing about it. They just look at that number and that's it. And so for me, I really feel like sharing a lot of information that people do not get is just another driving force to continue to do the work I'm doing.
Absolutely. So incredible as to what you're doing. So share with us and the audience as to when it comes to appraising, are there certain requirements as an appraiser, if you're appraising a property over $1 million, are there requirements that you have to have a degree, for example? Just walk through with us as to what is needed. And does different states apply to have different requirements on that?
Sure, sure. So the appraisal industry is typically state licensed. So if you want to become an appraiser in any state, you have to go through the state regulations, taking a certain amount of coursework, and then you're gonna have to work underneath an appraiser to get some experience to satisfy the experience requirement of the state, and then go take a big test, and then voila, you can now practice to value properties. And so, there are three different licenses you can get. You can become state license, which you can appraise properties up to $1 million, or you can become certified residential and appraiser general. Certified residential and appraiser general, you may have to have some college requirements, college education
Mhm.
that you have to complete it. But the first license, state license, you don't have to have a college degree or anything like that. You can just take the courses, get the experience, and pass the test, and you can appraise properties up to $1 million.
That's amazing. That's so good. Well, let's talk about technology because I know technologies has shifted and we are embracing, well, we need to embrace AI, artificial intelligence. I mean, if we're not embracing, we are going to be left behind. Can you share with us as to how quickly, as technology has shifted, the role of AI is going to play? Are humans going to be irreplaceable? in the appraisal industry? And also the second part of the question is how are we seeing changes because of the AI? Younger people coming into the business, how are they adapting to AI?
Well, the thing is about the appraisal business, it's never been young. And so the average age since I've been in the field 20 years has been 55 to 65. And so,
Okay, okay.
yeah. And so, there are more people now getting a whiff of this career,
Yeah,
which, I would say technology has played a huge role. Back when I got started, I had to print off a map and draw to where I'm going so I wouldn't get lost. But now you got navigation that do
yeah,
that for you. And so yeah, technology in our field has definitely increased. But the role of AI, it is going to affect every industry, but specifically for the appraiser, you know, may or may not have some big effects because, um, you know, appraisers have to go physically to a property and measure the house,
right.
typically in every appraisal. So, AI can't do that, right? So, to get the square footage of the house. So, that's the big task that the appraiser does. And so also we write up property descriptions. So we give descriptions of what we see based on the interior, exterior of the house. So, you know, throughout a lifespan of a property, the condition could change. So, you're gonna have to have a human to kind of go by there and see what the as is condition of that property is.
Mhm.
But like I said, there are going to probably be some factors where AI will probably be utilized, in our business. But I think it's really safe to say that, the human experience for appraisers is going to continue because AI can't go to a property and sit on that balcony and see like a small river view that property has
Right.
that could impact the value of that home. So those are some different things that human experience will probably continue. So,
Absolutely. I think, you need both, but with the advent of AI, I think people need to just embrace whether a specific industry may not be required to have, you're not adopting AI, but you still need to embrace it nevertheless. So Marcus, what properties do you focus on? Is it residential or commercial mainly?
sure. So today, for me personally, I'm more living in my passion. Like today, I just go. I'm a
What is
full-time
your
speaker.
passion?
I'm a full-time speaker and workshop presenter. Like I literally travel around the country and show people how to become licensed in their state. And then I also show them what the day in the life of an appraiser is like. And then also I talk to real estate professionals and um, first-time home buyers information about the appraisal and real estate and investments. So for today, more of my passion is just kind of serving the public in a different way now, by way of being able to share information through workshops or my book.
Amazing. What's the name of your book? Maybe we'll put that in the show notes at the end.
Sure. Well, the book is called it's called Assessing My Value. Uh, and you can find it on Amazon, Walmart.com, Barnes and Noble. But I wrote that book because I realized that um, 20 years later, the industry itself is still diverse. There's a lack of women, young people of color in the field. And so I just wanted to share my journey to be an inspiration and to share how you can literally find your passion and it take you some places you never thought you would go. But all because, being open and just allowing you know, uh, allowing you to like find something that you love to do and not just like to do. And so that kind of pushed me to write a book. It's been out for a few years now. I'm still touring with the book, thankfully, and it's just been really great to share my experience that way because not only most appraisers, they just work in the city that they live in,
Mhm.
but I've actually had the opportunity to see the landscape of the U.S. around values by my opportunity to work for Fannie Mae. And so I just love, sharing all these things that most people would never get unless I was out sharing.
That's amazing. Well, congratulations, Marcus. Absolutely, just congratulations on the book. And congratulations for, just really impacting. And I really want to acknowledge you because, you started off, you were the youngest in America to run a real estate appraisal firm, working with the largest institution, Fannie Mae. And so I just want to acknowledge you for what you have done and how you've just, shifted your life. And I liked what you said. You got to do what you love, not what you like. And that's the difference, right? That's the difference because doing what you love, you're going to get the most out of life and what you're doing. You're just impacting so many people through your message.
Yes, and you know, starting out as an appraiser, we're for the public. Like the public is entrusting us to give the lending institution the value of this asset. And so I think, over my 20 years career, it's like I wanted to still be for the public, and to kind of be out here sharing things that you won't intentionally get, and
Mhm,
so
mhm.
and I'm very honored to be in that position because um, you know, I feel like most people should find that one thing that they love to do.
Yes.
And then over a 20-year career like mine, you feel like you haven't really worked. You've just been doing a hobby, and so uh because you're so passionate about it and you love
Mhm,
it and you're
mhm.
supporting people. And I just think the intention behind it, the intention to really find something that you wake up in the morning just kind of all gritty about because you can't wait to start your day.
Right.
And so I want people to assess their own value and do the things that they want to do or want to accomplish or put themselves in position where they can now support others.
Absolutely. And I like the title of the book, Assessing, because you truly have to assess not just the property that you are investing in or your future investment that you will be assessing or will be buying that property, but how did you come up with the title? And can you share that with us?
Sure. I wanted to just kind of have a word play on appraising.
Right.
And
Uh-huh.
so most people know, people doing appraisal work either by way of real estate appraisal or assessing. The county in every state assesses every property's value for tax purposes. And so I just wanted to, come up with a word play, but also, honestly, just really looking at my entire real estate career. Like
Right. Yeah.
I literally assess my value of wanting to put myself in position young to succeed.
Right.
And my book is just my personal story of all the different things I've learned, but then the situations that I've had that happened to me. Running a whole business while the economy was in ruins in 2008
Yeah.
was crazy. And so, even through that hard time there,
Mhm.
I still stayed so in love with my career. And so and to, be in a position at one point, being so young, of running an appraisal company, doing
Mhm.
mortgage loans, flipping houses, managing my rental portfolio, all at the same time.
Mhm.
That took some really, you know, tough mindsets to, stay into all of that,
Right.
and then to have an opportunity to join the largest mortgage giant in the world, like, was just another thing that I was preparing myself for that I even know, just by being competent and being very confident in my abilities to do what I'm doing. And so, yeah, that title, assessing my values, means so much more, than just a book title. It was literally taking, entire mindset, discipline, all
Mhm.
these things that you need to be successful, and really thinking about, wow, I really did that. I really chose me. I chose to be happy. I chose to be happy in my career, but also being a part of a industry where it's service based too. You're actually doing stuff for other people. And so that really kind of just makes me so grateful, and to be able to share these mindsets, these stories, through a publication has been, quite frankly, amazing.
That is beautiful. Love that. So let's talk about mindset because that's what it truly takes. You ran your own business during the 2008 housing crash. That was the toughest time for anyone. And how did you maintain? Because there's a certain amount, when it comes to your mindset, anybody could have given up. They want to have their own business during the toughest time, or maybe a not so tough time. But most people, they want to run their own business, have a business, but halfway they will give up. What makes a person truly unstoppable, remarkable in their endeavors that they want to go after?
Sure. I think it boils down to commitment. How committed are you to
Mhm.
what you're doing and what you're learning? Or do you see the bigger picture of what the work you're doing? For me personally, the work I was doing was giving information to the public. And so on their value of their asset. If you look at home ownership is the biggest thing somebody is going to do, pretty much do in their life, is to own a property. And so being a part of their, story of, or even at that time in 2008, just really understanding, yes, the market is crazy, but what's my value here? Like, what do I own? What is it worth? What's the true number? Even, in good times or 2008, like just telling the truth of what you have, and then let the chips fall where they may after that. But I think you have to be truly committed to your task. You have to, take the good with the bad, the long nights, the um, being disciplined about, how much time you're putting into, your work, but then also, being committed to your outside work, things that you need to do with family, and honestly, on taking time for yourself. Like, a lot of different things roll into a consistent flow of running a business, and then especially when uh, the economy that you're in
Yeah,
is something that we've all never seen. And so, although that was a time in my life, I could have folded back. I could have just like, oh, this is too tough.
right.
Oh, I probably need to go do some. But I actually stayed in it and excelled that year, because most people don't know, in the appraisal field, it's not, you don't just get orders when somebody's using a bank to buy a property. You know, when people are trying to refinance, when banks foreclose on properties, you need appraisal. When people try to remove their mortgage insurance, when people get a divorce, there's tax appraisals, insurance appraisals. There's all kinds of ways that people utilize appraisers. And so that kept me confident because I knew even though this is a tough time, that there's different things that appraisers are utilized with. And I took well advantage of all of those things. But honestly, I was just way above my time. The average age is 50 in America, 50 to 65. And I
Incredible.
was a 24, 26-year old. I was 24 when I started, 26 when I got my license, but still I was so very young in a field that still 20 years later, the average age is 50 to 65.
That's
And
incredible.
so, yeah, and so that I feel just looking back at it is like, wow, I really had to be determined, and I didn't, I was so confident in myself of the information that I've learned to become an appraiser that I knew that I can handle any situation, even as young as I was. But I think it was more for me to be successful at that time because I didn't see anybody else in my city, have that type of company. And so it was a lot of responsibility. I wanted to make sure that I took my time on every assignment just to make sure that, I had everything, all my bases covered, because I did realize that, there were nobody else, you know, in my city, my age, and frankly, my race running a business like that. And
Right.
I've talked to, people as I've been touring with my book, and some people have just said, nobody ever do what you did, and so when I hear stuff like that, I was just like, wow,
Yeah.
it just gets me going to continue to share.
Mhm. And I'm sure it does because that's what it's all about. You got that momentum now. So that is just so amazing. Everything that you've just accomplished truly has brought you to where you are today. So let's talk about real estate. Now, real estate, it is very cyclical, as we know. During the, during COVID 2000, 2000 to 2021, as real estate, the housing, prices were low and, there was booming. And that was the time to get in. That was the time to buy a property, get into those investment. How do you see real estate now? How are people approaching when they want to buy a property in 2025?
Sure, around COVID, that was the time, but
Yeah, prices were booming.
yeah, also though, it was a lot of scarcity mindsets around that time too,
Right.
because,
Yes. Hmm.
even though people could see rates, it's like some people were just like, this is a crazy time to even be living and buying a house on top of that. Like, so, but for the ones that did, oh my
Mhm.
God, they really won, you know. And I look at real estate in a few different ways. I honestly feel like it's always a good time to buy because even if the rates, rates probably around 6, 7% right now, or lower. Historically, rates have always been around 6 to 10%, somewhere around there, historically. And so, you know, that's just data that's been out there, and people have still purchased homes, right? But the thing of it too is, as a renter, there's no advantages, right? As a renter, outside of just having your own place to call home, there are so many advantages if you actually buy a property. And so I feel like it's never not a good time to buy. It's always a good time to buy. to get out of like actually paying a landlord.
Mhm.
I'm one of those too. We don't ever want you to leave, you know, but it's like getting outside of that is going to put yourself in a better financial position to start building wealth. And so, if you can ever get out of uh, uh, just renting and go into home ownership, I don't care if rates are 8, 9%, you're still going to be able to, make sure you're in a property that you can afford, but then you can also benefit from the property appreciation. As a renter, you can't do that. And so that's
Mhm.
why, and write-offs and different things that homeowners get to take advantage of. And so I just honestly feel like there's way more advantages than disadvantages anytime you buy.
Absolutely. Anytime, there's a downturn in the market, there's always, this is the time to invest, to buy a property, to make those investments in a downturn, because that's when you want to take advantage. And I think most people, like I said, they do have a scarcity mindset. I don't have the money. How am I going to afford to buy a home? And I bought my first investment property at the end of 2021, and it's a duplex. So I'm not sure what it's like in the US. So I had to evict one of my tenants. He did not pay me for 1 year. And that was such a difficult time because I had to now evict him. On top of that, I had to go through the landlord and tenant tribunal. That was, it becomes costly. And so for most people, they don't want to be a landlord. And I'm not sure what it's like in the US. Are more people going, they want to become a landlord, or what is the cycle now? How has it shifted?
Yeah, I think it varies state by state.
Uh-huh.
Different states have landlord tenant laws, some more favorable than others, whatever
Correct.
it
Uh-huh.
is.
Hmm.
And so it just kind of depends on what state you live in. But, I think I honestly feel like the reward is way better than what you have to just deal with for a month or a year or just whatever. It's just it just I honestly just feel like yes, sometimes it's a headache, but at the end of the year, when you can now, have something that's income producing, I mean, it's just what happens when you buy property. Some things happen, sometimes you don't pick the best tenant. Sometimes things happen and you have to evict somebody, or, you have a big repair and it's going to cost somebody. Like,
Hmm.
yes, those things happen, but I think overall, if you look at the bigger picture, that time will pass, that money will be recouped, and you're still left with something that you can benefit from financially and um, have something to leave to your loved ones.
Absolutely. I think, leaving, having that plan, having a goal that when you do make an investment, for example, uh, you're passing it down to your future generation. You're passing it down so that people can, enjoy as to what you have worked hard on. And, I love the property when I bought it, and I was going to leave it, to my children. But, it just came a point that I did not want to become a landlord anymore because of all the bureaucracy. And on Ontario, in Canada, it's not landlord friendly. And so
Um,
there are so many people, right? There were so many people going up north to become a landlord, to make an investment. So I just got out of it. But there are some people, so that's what I was asking in the States. Are there different states that's more landlord friendly?
yeah, there are. Typically the northern parts of the country
Uh-huh.
are probably more landlord. But also, I mean, it just depends on what state you live in. And then, too, the other thing is, you know, just hire a property manager and let them deal with the headaches, here in the US. I such a crazy man, have managed my properties for the entire time I've had them.
Wow. You didn't want to have a property manager to manage, no?
It, it's just, you know, I just know so much about real estate. I know what to do. And I know how to do things quickly or
Hmm.
have a team set up to where I don't have to pay a property manager. But, and I've done this manage stuff out of state as well. So it's just,
That's amazing.
I know. It's every year I say, okay, this is the year I'm gonna stop doing this, but it's just a continued cycle. But it's just fun for me, you know, because I just understand, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'll just give some more tips around owning properties. You know, if you are gonna own a property, you know, two things, well, a few things I would do. Definitely get a home warranty. So if you, you know, a home warranty is different outside of your insurance. You know, if something major happens, you got your insurance as you're paying in your note, right? But home warranty is a separate thing that you can pay monthly, and then any appliances, HVACs or AC units, plumbing, any kind of thing in the interior happens, then that you'll be covered. And that home warranty has saved me thousands of dollars just by having it in place. And
Hmm.
so, you know, and then using a property manager to, you know, deal with all the headaches and day to day. But then also, you know, with tenants, you know, they got, you know, you have to thoroughly vet these people because they're
Yes.
moving into your space, right? And you know, you need to check their credit, you need to check their income, how long they've been on jobs, their, you know, background, and kind of really explain to them, hey, you know, so great that you want to lease my property, but here's 5 things that are non-negotiable, you know, and kind of really have that conversation, you know, to really streamline any issues. Because the biggest thing is communication. Communication will solve every single thing. And so if you can get people to communicate with you and kind of accept your non-negotiables, I think you can have a flow. You know, I've had people in properties for over 12 years in one property, you know, just, you
Wow.
know,
That's
you know,
amazing.
so it's just like it's great to get conversations,
Right.
communication, and things happen. I'm alerted, you know, I'm able to deal with it instead of being a surprise, you know.
Mhm.
And so I think it's just that aspect of communication that you have with your tenant.
Yes, absolutely. Can you share with us 3 tips for, our viewers listening if they want to get into the real estate appraisal field? What do they need to do? Are there requirements that they need to do first of all before the prerequisites? So can you share with us the tips that they need to take?
Sure. You know, because in my opinion, the real estate appraisal field is the hardest part of real estate. It's the most requirements you got to take. It's the toughest part to get in there. And so, what I typically tell people is to take the supervisory trainee course that most states share to offer you to take. And that'll kind of get you a good idea of the appraisal field, or if you want to continue on to take the courses, take the additional courses like procedures and
And
things
how
of that
long are the
nature.
courses? How long are they?
Yeah, so you know, typical courses in most states, you got to get 75 to 79 hours total
Hmm.
uh, to satisfy the education piece.
Right.
But you know, the I think the supervisor appraisal class is maybe 4 or 5 hours or something like that, or an hour. I forgot the amount of time that that particular course is. But that particular course will pretty much let you know if you want to move forward to take the rest of the courses, and that's the supervisory and trainee course for appraisals. And so it's a required course that people have to take. And so also, it's to do a little research. You can go to Google, you can use YouTube, kind of put in the day in the life of a real estate appraiser and see what people are talking about. See what people are doing, and really understanding their day in life. And then I also do consulting sessions with people. So people can find me on LinkedIn, Marcus Hill, or mhillenterprises.com. And I literally do sessions with people and walk them through what the day in the life is like. Uh, and then also my book gives you my entire journey, like from start. I walked them to taking the courses, getting the experience hours, taking a big test. Arkansas is maybe one of the only states that when you get through with the coursework, with the experience requirement, you have to go sit in front of the appraisal board to even make it to the test. So
Oh,
just
wow.
imagine a 25-year-old going through everything and going through this big interview with the board, and they looking at me like, oh my God, I've never seen anybody this young get to this point, right? And so that was, oh my God, that was such a
Wow.
amazing day that I still remember, to this day, because of how how I felt, and then understanding the makeup of the industry and what I was embarking on. And so, but yeah, I would definitely get yourself under refresh yourself and get some information on just the career itself. Like, what are you doing? You're measuring properties, you're writing on reports. Like, are these the things that you may want to do? And then also, um, it's the nature of the field. Like, people are relying on your expertise before someone is about to make the biggest purchase of the lifetime.
Yes.
And you're the person that's required to give the value where you can make the deal go or you can make the deal stop.
Right.
And so that's a lot of pressure right there. So
Yeah. What makes a property not go the way that people want to buy that property? What would you say does not make that deal? So appraisal, they come in, they assess the property. Can you share with us what is that sticky point so the deal falls through?
yeah, so typically a person will go to a bank or a mortgage institution
Mhm.
and get a pre-approval. And then they go, once they get the approval, they'll go to realtor to find the property. Now, the seller of that property that they may want to buy, the seller want what they want typically. They just want whatever number that they want to sell it for, they just want it. But
Right. Uh-huh.
it's not always worth that. And so, and it could be a situation where I'll just throw out a number. So let's just say somebody's approved for 200, and they find a property where the seller wants to sell them that property for what they're approved for, 200, right?
Mhm.
But the bank is going to require an appraiser to go out there before they close to figure out what it's really worth. Now, if that property comes back at 195,
Uh-huh.
and that's the value. And so
Mhm. Right.
the seller can come down to that 195 mark, or they may not want to sell it at all. And so, but the beauty about the appraisal field is that you're telling the truth. You're telling the
Mhm.
truth of what this is, what the value is, without without being anything, uh, without being having any kind of noise from the buyer or the seller, or you don't care about what's going on in this deal. You're just telling the truth on this value. And so that within itself is just amazing because, you want to be a part of somebody's biggest dream of home ownership,
Mhm.
but know that they got the right value and they, just to kind of help them move forward in their deal. And so, it's all about being a part of something. You're part of home buyers entire process of their dream, and so that's what's so exciting about the field. Like, you're being charged to give an expertise where you're helping the homeowner and also you're protecting the lender. And so it's just amazing to kind of be in that kind of position.
That is so good. So you talked about you were in front of the advisory board. Did you have to go through all the courses that, the supervisory courses, etc., before you went to the advisory board, or was that after the fact?
Sure.
How does
Yeah.
that work?
So before you get to that point, you do have to take all the required education hours, and you
Right.
do have to work underneath an appraiser to get all your experience hours the
Yes.
state is gonna
Hmm. Hmm.
require you. But yeah, so it's different. Some states don't require a board meeting before you go on to take the test, but Arkansas was one. And so, but you can just imagine a 25-year-old kid getting to that level and having a meeting with people on this board that can deny you from going to take the test or approve you. And so
Was that a daunting experience?
it
Oh,
was amazing. Yes, I put it in my book. It was literally one of the most just crazy experiences I've ever had because
wow.
um I knew I had to know my stuff. Like, I couldn't go in there not knowing things because they were going to ask me. And so that's how I knew I found my passion, because I went in there, question after question. And then outside of that, okay, we're done here. So, just to know, like, wow, I truly, truly found my passion, because you do have to know so much. The appraisal field is like no other part of real estate because transactions don't happen without the value. So
Mm, true.
you have to know the value. You have to know how to accurately appraise properties. And, just to be in that position so young, it was just quite amazing. I look at it back now, I'm like, wow, just being in an awkward situation where, they may be looking at me like I'm their son, like age, so.
Oh, that
And
is so good.
there's not a young field. It's still not a young field,
Mm, mhm.
and so just to kind of have been in that position is just, really, it's inspiring.
That's beautiful. Your final question, Marcus. And so again, I do want to, congratulate you. I do want to acknowledge you for the impact truly that, you are making, going around the states, sharing, speaking, talking about your book, sharing about real estate appraisal and how the industry, yes, it's a tough industry. People that want to come into the industry is not easy as it may seem, but you have just accomplished so much in your life. And, so I just want to acknowledge you, first of all, on that again. Your
Thank you.
final question, can you share 3 life lessons, everything that you have accomplished in your life, and say tomorrow you wake up in the morning and all your files are deleted? What are 3 life lessons that you want our viewers to take away?
Absolutely. So first off, thank you so much for for acknowledging me and my journey and story. Truly
Mm,
appreciate that. And, you know, I, I would, I would first start off by saying, don't put all your eggs in one hatch, in one batch. Have a plan B and C and
mm,
D, to keep you just on the right path. Because a lot of times, sometimes we go down things and we don't accomplish them. And then that kind of sets us back for some years sometimes, we really feel defeated. But I just think if we have a plan B, C, and D, and E, that'll keep us on the right path and just kind of continue on down some type of ownership of our lives, to really continue. And I would say another thing would be, you know, find the joy of things.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
we all have to work, we work for income, pay bills, support our family. But, I think if we truly find joy in what we do, you never really work. You go through life as, doing the things you have to do, but it's like with a smile on your face. And it's just like, yes, I have to do this, but it's more like I get to do this. And
Yeah.
so just
Yeah.
having that aspect of thought around that. And then honestly, I would say, within all the things that we do for work and for other people, don't don't lack your self-care. Your self-care is so important to the livelihood of your journey of living. And so I, unfortunately, did not participate in honoring my self-care as a young person because I was so into what I was doing and I
Yeah.
didn't want to be the young person messing up. So I
Yeah.
really made sure I knew what I was doing. But looking at it today, I wish I would have, you know, implemented more self-care, while I'm working, while I'm in school or learning these different things. You can't forget about yourself. So I truly feel like people should, um, you know, weekly find something that you only like to do and do that, right? Be consistent with celebrating your self-care or yes, I know I'm doing all these other things, but I'm gonna take 30 minutes or an hour to do something I only like to do. And
Yes.
then also I would recommend to pre-plan things, like pre-plan a celebration or pre-plan a vacation. That way, okay, I'm gonna be really into these things for this amount of time, but I know, in that day of the month, I'm gonna do something I like to do. And so, yeah, yes, we can be focused and motivated on our careers and learning these different things, but self-care is usually not talked about, but it should be at the focal point if we really want to achieve success.
Absolutely. And I love what you said. Point number two, joy. I think joy is the biggest that most people, we're all in this rat race, just work, 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 just grind, grind, grind. And we forget about implementing the joy or the joy that what brings you joy and realizing that if you bring joy, into your life, whether how you start off your day, bringing joy, you're laughing, you bring laughter into your life. And that really transcends and shapes the rest of your day. So I love that. And I love point number three, celebration, celebrating your wins. People need to celebrate just the smallest of wins. And most people don't do that because, they think, well, it's small, but is significant. A win is a win, whether it's small or big. Would you agree that you need to celebrate even the smallest wins? Because that shapes up your life and shapes your day.
Yeah, absolutely. Or you could go through life where things are never enough. Like, oh, I accomplished this, but
True,
still I
yes.
need
Yeah.
to go this way. And so, but if we acknowledge what we just accomplished, it makes you reset to go after another goal and know that I'm going through life. Yes, I'm achieving things, but I'm actually enjoying the celebration along the way.
Absolutely. Very powerful. Marcus, where can people find you and how can we support you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm at Instagram at Ask Marcus Hill, AskMarcusHill. I'm on LinkedIn, Marcus Hill. I'm on Facebook. You can go to www.mhillenterprises for more information. But I'm all over Google. You can put my name, real estate appraiser, and you can find all the things that I've been doing over for years. And honestly, I'm so open to coming to share my story anywhere around the world. So, um, if some things people have heard in this interview that will be really, really good to share with their organization, school, or group, I would love to be a part of that. My story is can be anybody's story. I just want to be a person to help you, inspire you, and just kind of let you know that you can go off and do great things. It's just the mindset. And so also please support my book. It's on Amazon. It's it's a book with no fluff. I get right to the points in there. And so, but so very honored, to share my story because, I come from a small state of Little Rock, Arkansas. Some people were like, wow, your story is like a New York, LA, or, kind of story, but, I'm happy, so very honored to had my start in Little Rock, Arkansas. And, you know, but, you know, your story can be big everywhere. It's just
Yeah.
about
Yes.
creating your story, and creating you and letting people know that no matter where you come from, no matter what things you encounter in your life, you can be successful if you put your mind to it. And so I'm so very happy to, like I said, have a book out that kind of gives you my journey, but then I give you a lot of information on real estate. I have chapters about buying your first house or investing into properties, and how to become an appraiser. And so I just wanted to support the public even more by sharing my journey and personal story, but then give you things I've learned in my 20-year career that could help you in your situation. And just want to share the last chapter of my book is called A Letter to My Younger Self. And so in this chapter, I recount my younger self that could have went down any path but positive to remind my younger self, hey, keep on the right path because now we get to share our story all around the country and make impact, And so that in itself truly inspires me.
That is powerful, beautiful. I absolutely love that. Absolutely incredible. Marcus Hill, everybody, and such a great conversation we've just had. And thank you to each and every one of you who tune in and week out on Ask the Experts podcast, and stay tuned for another episode. We always bring amazing entrepreneurs on the show. So make sure that you bring joy into your life. There's no point working, we're all in this grind, we're all in the rat race to just work, work, work. But if you're not slowing down, if you're not taking moments out of your life to truly enjoy and to truly know as to what is the meaning to your life, what is the meaning to your life today, not just tomorrow, but what are the intentions that you have every single day, as Marcus mentioned? Also, you want to celebrate the wins. The smallest of wins is actually what leads to the bigger wins. But if you're not taking the time out to celebration of you acknowledging as to where you were to where you are today, as Marcus truly has shared his amazing story, you too could be the beacon of light. You too can be the inspiration that you always wanted to be. So I'm so grateful to Marcus Hill for joining us today. And I'm so grateful to each and every one of you who tunes in to the show. We will see you the next time. Bye for now. Thank you so much, Marcus. That was absolutely just amazing.
Absolutely.